So in this video, we're going to do two main tasks. One is to create a new layer, an entirely new layer. And in that layer, we are then going to add some labels for place names. So it's one job, but it requires two distinct tasks. So let's just start by doing that. So to create a new layer, there are many different, if we look up here, we can add layers and we can create new layers. This is a new GeoPackage or a new shape file or a new spatial light layer. Let's just keep things tidy and add a new table to our GeoPackage. We're not going to create a new GeoPackage, we're going to add a table to it. But to do that, we have to use this create new GeoPackage layer tool. So we click on there, and then we need to find the database. So we click on this button here, and then, as luck would have it, it has led me straight to, I should be careful because, yes, click there, and then we go down to there, and we have our project in here, and there is our GeoPackage layer. So it's in the folder where you've stored it, this GPKG file that we spoke about earlier in one of the first videos. We mark that, we click on save. The table name, we can call place names, or everything else is in Swedish in this, so I'll just continue with that to there. Geometry type. There are two possibilities. We can either use points, and if we use a point, then we have no control over the, or we have a harder time controlling the direction of the text. We can control it to some degree, but it's perhaps better to just use a line string. So we click on that, and then we need to add some fields, as in columns for the table. So obviously we're going to need a name. So let's call that name there, or no, as we're going to continue with the whole Swedish thing. So it's text, and we add there. Then we need to think about something else. In cartography, we have this whole thing with the hierarchy of the text. So we have small text, large text. We have different colored text for different types of areas. So if we're talking about water, we generally speaking want a bluer text, for example. Whereas place names will have a black text and different sizes of them. You know, if we're talking about a country name, then it's a larger text, or a regional name, it's a smaller text. Road names, very, very small. So we will have some form of hierarchy. As it's a hierarchy, perhaps we can, instead of using text, we'll use numbers to determine this. Now, these don't actually have to be ordinal. If you remember, we had this thing with the ordinal scale. They are ordinal, but in many respects, but things like water perhaps don't, they sit sort of at the side in the hierarchy rather than at a particular level, and they can have their own hierarchy. It doesn't actually matter so long as we can distinguish between them. So this is like a nominal scale, but where we're using numbers. So we'll call this, we'll just call it something simple, keep it short. Here, we understand. At there, so we have our two columns for the table, and then we can add this to the existing file. Now we've got to be very careful here, because what we're going to do is we're going to click on OK, and then it says here that the file already exists, which it does. We do not want to overwrite it. Do not overwrite it, because then you'll lose everything. It's all gone. We're just creating a completely new empty file. All of your editing work that you have done will be overwritten. Instead, we want to just add a new layer to it. So we click Add New Layer, and here it is. It's ended up down here. We're going to move that up to the top. Even though it's a line symbol, we're going to put it at the top because it's just for text. And one of the first things we're going to do actually is click here, and we'll look at the properties and the symbology. We will have this as no line at all. We won't have a line, no pen. We won't write the symbol out. We will draw a line, but there will be no symbol. We're only interested in the labels. So we can click on OK to begin with there. Right, so now we need to start putting in labels. And this area, I believe, is called Nor. So let's start adding a label for that place name. We start editing it, and we want to draw in an object. So the question now is, do we want our object to be a place name that is horizontal, or do we want to have some direction in the text? Well, let's just start with the simple, basic horizontal text. So we're just going to draw a line, and we'll use our line tool like that, and we want to draw a straight line. Perhaps the easiest way of drawing a straight line is to go back to this, or a horizontal line, is to use the advanced editing tool. That's one way of doing it anyway. And we can place our text somewhere in a convenient spot. That's a nice big empty space. So let's just click there. And then we want to go out 90 degrees, or sorry, 0 degrees according to this. And the distance, if you remember from the advanced digitizing tool, click on C and the D. I mean, that really doesn't matter because we're not going to see the line anyway, but let's just say 75 meters. Click on the C, and then we're done. And then what is this called? Well, we'll call that Nor in the hierarchy. Right, so this is going to be in the scale of our map. This could be top level. So we'll give it a 1. Click on OK. Well, nothing's happened. There's no label assigned to it yet. So we then go back here and we go to properties. Now the simplest thing would be labels, just the single label, and whatever it says in name, that's what we're going to use. And it's going to be parallel. We can have it on the line, above the line, or below the line. It doesn't matter if we don't see the line. The distance from it doesn't matter either because we're not going to see the line. No repeats. We don't need repeats. And the overrun we'll take care of ourselves. So that's going to do that. When we look at the buffer, we draw a buffer around it, perhaps. The text, right? Well, it's going to be, we'll increase that to 16. We can apply. Okay. And there we have a text telling us what this place name is. The problem we have now is that if we have another place name, let's say we want to put in a name for something, somebody, let's say, well, there's a school here. I'll just call it a school. I'll say there's a text in there, and we're going to have that text perhaps slightly oriented in that direction. And we'll go C, just give that a particular length. It's really not that important. And C, click, and we're done. Now that we'll call school, just for a laugh. We'll give that the number 2, second ranking in our hierarchy. Unfortunately, it's now got the same text style as number 1 because we've only set one text style. There is no hierarchy here. So now we're going to need to adjust this. So instead of single labels, we'll need to use some sort of rule-based labeling. So this is quite complex, and I'll break this up into a separate video. And we'll come back to that in the next one.